Rabbi.
Yes.
Hi, Rabbi.
Shalom.
So I had a question specifically. I've spoken to quite a few rabbis regarding conversion on different aspects and so forth. And one of the things that was brought up, this was actually how you mentioned earlier about the B'nai Anasim and all of these individuals. One of the things that was interesting is that in regards to like the lost tribes, one rabbi had mentioned that anyone who believes that they're part of the lost tribes, they shouldn't convert. They should just follow Torah. Basically, they should just do their thing. And then the reason behind that was because of the fact that what he said was that there is no such thing as converting between tribes. What is your thought on that?
What they're saying is that if you can prove that you have a Jewish mother, then what you have to do is teshuvah, that you have to return. That's not the argument. For sure, like if someone has a Jewish mother, they don't have to convert to Judaism. Okay. Now, conversion to Judaism, according to Jewish law, only took a day or two. So returning to Judaism really took as long as converting to Judaism. But the difference is only seen nowadays that they mistreat converts and they make them wait 1-2 years plus. Because the truth is that someone who's returning to Judaism, to a certain extent, really had the status also of a convert. As a matter of fact, there's an opinion, a valid halachic opinion, that a returnee also has to go to the mikvah. I think it was the Ramah that held like this. And clearly, historically, if you were doing teshuvah, you would also bring a korban. So the only thing you're missing is milah, but that's because you were probably circumcised as a kid. So really, conversion, and also there's historic texts that teach that a choser b'teshuvah is also called a convert, because he was someone far who's now has come close again. And actually, this is how Rashi holds to a certain extent. He says that when it says ve'aftem et hager and hager lo tone, not to torture a convert or don't mistreat a convert or that you should love a convert, that this doesn't mean convert. That ger here means anyone from the outside, anyone who was far, who was brought close. Technically, whether he had Jewish parents or not. In the kingdom of Judah, it wasn't only Judah. Binyamin also lived in the kingdom of Judah, and Levium also lived in the kingdom of Judah. So it's not like you're converting to be Jewish. This is just something that exists in the English language. If you spoke Russian, you wouldn't even say Jew, you would say Hebrew. It's just because in English we're usually saying Jew, and then we're saying you're Jewish, and then some bright guy out there will say, oh, what do you mean? Judah is just one tribe. You can't convert to just one tribe. Jew nowadays, for all intents and purposes, just means Israelite, because we're the only ones left. I.e. the kingdom of Judah. Benjamin, Levium, and people from Yehuda, and some people from Shimon, okay? Not to mention any Ethiopian who comes from the tribe of Dan. Colloquially, in English, it's called Jew. Thing is, all these people, like the B'nai Menashe and the Pashtuns in Afghanistan and all this stuff, they're given special treatment because of Jewish blood. They claim to have a lineage. Not that they can prove they have a tradition of being ethnic Jews and they automatically want to give these people special treatment, basically showing how bigoted they are, while convert, they'll just push away and discourage. But yes, the notion of B'nai Anasim nowadays, rabbis will tell them because they claim to be Jewish, they should keep all of Torah. However, they still have to do what's called a ger lechumra, a conversion done just in case. However, in this conversion, they don't make a bracha, because we have a principle in Judaism of safek bracha lakula, that if there's a question on whether you should make a bracha or not, you're lenient on it and you don't make it. If there's a question that this person's already Jewish, when they're in the water, they don't have to make the blessing for the mikvah. That's the only difference between this conversion done just in case and a conversion that's done regular. It's still a regular conversion, with the exception that the person could in some way call himself Ben, the name of his father, who he claims is already Jewish, but that's also a later practice. All right, then you could you could convert and not call yourself Ben Avraham. There's no obligation for that.
Okay, so how far, because you have so many that come from from Christianity and Catholicism, and that are claiming to be from the Jewish lineage and so forth. How far back does one go to determine whether their mother and their grandmother and their so forth can be considered Jewish? Is there like so many generations back, or?
nowadays, this whole banana seam thing doesn't really exist in terms of being accepted by community, unless you could bring the ketubah of your grandmother, your great grandmother, like someone from your mother's side, proving that you're a halachic Jew. If you don't have a ketubah, they're going to make you reconvert. Now, there's something else. There's having what's called a chazaka. So a chazaka is like an understanding that you're Jewish. In other words, if you have other members in your family who are accepted as Jews and belong to a community, their testimony of your mother, your grandmother being Jewish is enough. But if you don't have either of those two things, which is pretty much 99% of Bnei Anusim, don't forget, people were kicked out of Spain in 1492. You're talking about 500 years, that people are going to track that for 500 years. And to prove, now I'm not saying that they can't have some descendants that are Jewish. The understanding is that everyone from Spain has some sort of Jewish blood because the high percentage of Jews who lived in Spain. But to say that there's some unbroken line through your mother that solidifies you as a halachic Jew, if they could prove it, then it's accepted. But I've never seen anyone who's been able to prove it.
Okay, then one final thing is that if they can prove it, would then their children automatically then also be Jewish?
Yeah, for sure. Even if you make Aliyah, if any Jew in America wants to make Aliyah, they're not just going to accept you because you look like Jerry Seinfeld. The state of Israel requires proof for Jewishness. Now, synagogues in America don't require proof. The vast majority of people who go to Orthodox synagogues in America, conservative or reform, they cannot prove they're Jewish, especially if they lost relatives in the Holocaust. I mean, almost everything was lost. But they'll say, okay, you know, like my last name is Bernstein or some Ashkenazi understanding of a Jewish last name. And if the person's from New York or something like that, and if they could trace your lineage to Hungary, to Germany, or to Russia, they'll accept them into a synagogue, and they'll probably even marry them. However, if you want to make Aliyah, the Sochnut requires you to prove your Jewishness. And if you can't prove your Jewishness, they won't let you immigrate to the land of Israel. Now, there's many Russians who lie about being Jewish just because the economy is better in Israel than it is in Russia. And not to mention that there's just tons of Russians who aren't Jewish because the Jewish agency, which is in Hebrew, it's a Sochnut, they accept you to make Aliyah if your father's Jewish or your great-grandfather's Jewish, not necessarily your mother being Jewish. So these people could live in the state of Israel and become citizens. However, the rabbinate does not recognize them as Jewish. And the rabbinate are the ones who are in charge of conversion, marriage, and basically schools, religious schools. So there's a lot of these Russians that they fall in love with Israelis who are halakhically Jewish. And what they have to do to get married, they have to go out of the country, typically to the closest place that's friendly, which is Cyprus. They get married there, and then they come back to the state of Israel, and then Israel will recognize their marriage. But the rabbinate never will, but the state will. Although in Israel, you only could get married to the rabbinate. This is why people have to go outside to get married.
So you know that there's all these people that are going out now and doing this DNA testing. What really relevance are the results
relevance at all
for that?
Halachically, according to Jewish law, there's no relevance.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.